Well, my atomic clock has gone to time. And so I'm going to start this webinar. Welcome to the first ever Lord Zoom Live. I am Lord Zoom, a little bit confused, a little bit bemused. Interesting. And here's confession number one. What do you do when you're given the chance to do anything? The answer is you get very confused. I have a world of tech, too much tech. And I spent the last week putting stuff in, taking stuff out, putting stuff in, taking stuff out. And I started to think this is going to be a very silly webinar if I just overload the world with tech. So why not do it naked? No, it's all right. I'm leaving my clothes on, but technically we are starting naked. After all, we've got every single session, every single week to add some tech. Therefore, this presentation is going to be very, very basic, but I hope the message isn't. We are running this in the webinar format, but we're going to be talking about Zoom meetings, which may be confusing, but it shouldn't be, because let's remember that secret that Zoom never tell us. There's only one app. There might be Zoom meetings, Zoom webinars, Zoom events, even Zoom displays, Zoom phone, but they all run in one app. There may be different versions of that app rebuilt for the different platforms, but again, they are pretty much the same. It's all the same world. The options given to us by Zoom are arbitrary. They are set to make the two environments work, Zoom meetings and Zoom webinars. So today we are going to talk about Zoom webinars. And I'm going to give you what I believe are the 5 main things that I consider whenever anybody talks about setting up a Zoom meeting, whether it's an internal meeting or it's a production meeting, or it's a production in itself, or it's an event in itself. It doesn't really matter. Where you have decided that it's a Zoom meeting is better than a Zoom webinar, that is usually because you want to see the people, you want to interact with the people. But otherwise, most of the options are the same. So let's look at my ideas, my suggestions for the best way to think about your meeting when you start. And if you have other ideas, other suggestions, put them in the chat. I can see it. It's just over there in the out the corner of my eye. I will see any chat comments that you want to put there, and we will add it into the discussion. And I have a simple slideshow I'm going to show you in a simple way. The first thing about meetings is, what's your timing? Sorry, has this got anything to do with Zoom? It's got a lot to do with Zoom. What is the expectation of you and your audience? Because I see meetings falling apart from the beginning because nobody knows actually what time the meeting starts. There will be different rules for different types of meetings, but when does your team meeting start? Does it start on the hour? If so, what time are your employees going to join you for your team meeting? Are they going to finish the previous meeting at 59 minutes and 59 seconds and get to you at 1 second past when the meeting's supposed to start? And we all know that you can't just walk into a room and sit down at a desk and be attentful for a meeting. So why do you expect that to be happening online? If you're doing an event to a set of guests, are you going to do the same thing to them? Are you going to ignore them until the last minute and then come live? Is this really the way you're going to run your world? Is it the way you're going to run your world in a real world? It's important. First impressions count. And it doesn't matter if it's in a meeting with people you've met lots of times before. You're probably going to get bored with it, but I'm going to tell you again, I'm a member of Toastmasters International. One of my first roles in Toastmasters was Sergeant at Arms. The Sergeant at Arms gets a chance to create the whole room, to lay it all out, make it look attractive, get all the paperwork and everything sorted, make sure the flip chart is there if needed. So yes, it's a bit of a you're setting up the room mate role, but there is one amazing advantage of being the Sergeant at Arms. You're the person who starts the meeting. You're the person who first stands on the stage and opens the meeting. And I can tell you from experience, the whole meeting can fail or succeed by what the first person says. And I've proved that because I've done bad openings and I've watched the meeting start grinding to a halt. I've done great openings. I've watched the meeting buzz. And as you can imagine, I tended to keep to great meetings. Impact, energy, get everybody in the room attentive, get them all working, get them all thinking about the meeting, get them all involved, get them all. I'm getting ahead of myself. Your meeting needs to be framed. Too often we go to meetings, go to webinars, go to presentations, and nobody's quite sure what's going on. Especially when you get to those meetings when people turn up and other people don't. And suddenly you find you're a speaker short, a presenter short, a presentation short. And you're faffing around at the beginning of the meeting trying to work out who's taking over. That's not running a meeting. It's not running a webinar. Can you hear me? All those sort of issues must be sorted out. It loses the energy. So again, you need to know where you're going. You need to know how you're going to get there. And you need to know what the objective of the meeting is. Otherwise, meetings go on forever. About 30 years ago, I worked for this technology company, and we used to have really long technical meetings. And one day, I thought, I'm going to do something about this. Because I was business development, and I was trying to develop the business. So I looked at the people in the room, and I made a generous estimate of their value to the company on an hourly basis. And 15 minutes into the meeting, without talking to anybody, I stood up, walked over to the right whiteboard and wrote down what I believed the meeting had cost us in salary at that 15-minute mark. And at 30 minutes, I did the same thing. I went back up to the whiteboard, wiped off that value, put in the next value, how much I thought the meeting was costing us. I didn't give any explanation whatsoever until the meeting finished, where I put the final total rounded up to the nearest pound. Would you be surprised to know that most of our meetings, for the rest of the time that I can remember in that company, were actually shorter, more to the point, more effective, and better for everybody? They were. Can't do that tactic at Toastmasters because we're all free. I wish I could. But have a think about that. Have a think about how much you spend in meetings and how much value you get out of those meetings. Don't have meetings for meeting's sake. Give them a view. Give them a reason. Because if you're marketing and you're promoting and you're doing lots of outbound promotion like I am, if meetings aren't interesting, then I'll look at my list of people, my list of guests, and they'll all start disappearing on me. And I've got to keep them interested and give them value in good time. So frame your session with a clear objective and make it clear to everybody in the meeting. What's my next tip? Well, that's engage early and engage often. Well, I could run a poll. I could put people in breakout rooms to discuss the current things that we've been talking about. I could say where you're from, because that's always a common one we ask. We don't have to ask that because I know where our guests are from because they've already been putting those comments in. They're good. They're good. We have good quality guests here. It's always nice to see. So we know where everybody is. We know where Ray is. Ray's in Florida. And as Ray's in Florida and it's pouring with rain here, I'm probably not going to say much more to Ray. So let's have a look at this point. Engage early and engage often. Converse with your audience. Interact with them. We're going to interact with them. We're going to use chat. We're going to use breakout rooms. There's another way of interacting with the audience, and that's to have a proxy audience. And the way you have a proxy audience is you have a panelist. And guess what? I've got one. I've got a great one. I've got a panelist who will tell me if I'm technically making mistakes. I've got one who will keep me on the straight and narrow. He's going to be my guest panelist, hopefully, for most of the events. Although he's got a business like the rest of us and may not make all of them. But I would like to introduce my panelist friend to you now. Yes, you could almost say this has been scripted. Come to the stage, please, will you, Mike?
Yes.
Welcome, everyone.
Thanks for coming, Mike.
Of course, John. Not a problem.
I have rattled on for a while. Have you got your biggest tip or idea about meetings that you'd like to throw in now?
My biggest tip for meetings, you definitely hit some of my pet peeves. So I can talk about that, which is timing. So you definitely mentioned timing in that regard. So a pet peeve of mine, anytime I host a meeting, webinar, event, et cetera, in a non-hybrid and hybrid situation, and just strictly online situation as well, because there is the three different ones. Everybody loves to be quote unquote fashionably late. And the infamous fashionably late is the death of event coordinators, because they do on purpose schedule meetings to be at X time, at X location in a physical world. And of course, now the hybrid world and the online world, of course, there is no difference when it comes to making sure that you are prompt, professional, and on time. But there's still going to be those people, as John was mentioning, timing, that are going to be the infamous fashionably late, or as John and I have been discussing over the last few weeks ourselves, is does Zoom really start meetings right on time? And if they do,
I think corporates tend to finish meetings on the hour and want to restart on the same hour. And I think in corporate meeting world, that's what they do. But I agree with you. If you're running an external event for external guests, you should start something earlier so they can turn up. Maybe one of my bits of tech I'll introduce next week will be some get you going music or a get you going sessions or something like that to open up that end of it. But yeah, I agree with you totally. And that probably brings us really nicely on to our next comment, which is something I know that's even closer to your heart. Mastering your on-screen presence.
Yes, absolutely. So when it comes to, for me, mastering your on-screen presence, that means making sure that you are, you've got a nice background like I do. You are sitting up properly in your chair. You've got a well set up microphone. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the picture, but it can be. Making sure that you have properly set up your audio so that people can actually hear you properly. That might mean spending a little extra on, as we call it, on your kit, or on your gear that you're going to have where you're doing majority of your meetings, and in this case, Zoom meetings at minimum. And of course, lighting. And lighting. Do cameras love lighting? Cameras really, really love lighting. They love lighting so much that the less lighting you give them, it'll show. Your quality definitely will show.
Yeah.
So sometimes
buy a new light before you buy a new camera. That's always my advice I give presenters. Upgrade your lighting first, and then if you still don't feel good, then you can get a camera. I've got a little bit carried away with my lighting because I've got a light over here to add some atmosphere. I've got a light over there on the piano because otherwise it just disappears. And then I have a big white diffuse light in front of me so that I can glow in front of the camera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be that expensive of lighting. A lot of YouTube influencers, if you may be watching them, or any of the people that have spent a lot of money on their camera rigs, will have the couple $100, if not couple $1,000 lights. And are they really necessarily? No. I can tell you right now that my lighting kit that is lighting me today cost me under $100 Canadian. So it can be done, but it has to be done well. And you have to make sure that, behind my blue screen, I have a mirror or I have a window. You're not seeing the window. And I've purposely blocked out because at this time of the season, especially in Canada, it's a very sunny season. So I'm not in front of a sunny window, as an example. I'm not, and I purposely bought myself dark curtains that are taking away that. So you do not even see that there is the potential of any lighting even coming through the blue that I have. And that is a real cloth behind me.
That's great.
That I am using as a background, as an example. But again, my lighting is bouncing. My lighting is not on me. My biggest pet peeve that I will see is people will use ring lights, and they will, chances are, use them inappropriately, especially considering both John and I are wearing glasses. You will see the ring light in our eyes because they will put the ring light around their camera. Usually those are built more for phones, and that will, it doesn't look very professional. To me, it doesn't look very professional if I'm looking at you and you're looking at the camera and I see the ring light in my eyes reflecting off of the glasses. So basic, making sure that you got a lot of light, more light than you probably would think you probably would need. So no, I do not have my ceiling light on currently. I am strictly with lighting that I have currently on are two specific lights that I actually are having bounce off the ceiling and the walls. That is causing the look that I'm showing you on most of my shows that you're familiar with me with, and today.
Yeah, if you go outside and it's bright sunshine and you feel it's much, much brighter, then your lights inside are probably not strong enough. If it's a overcast day, you should be pretty much as bright as an overcast day. And I have a light problem because I have a Louvre type window above me. And if I leave that open, then every time the sun goes in or out, the light coming down on me changes, and then it will just look silly. So I actually close it, and I have a light up there to give me a steady delivery of that light from the down the back, on top of my head and the back of my head, which makes me pop off the background. But because it's a controlled light, and that's the only reason, that's my excuse for spending more on lights, because my original lights were like you, they were $20, $30, $40 big bulb lights, low power bulb lights, weren't even LEDs in those days. And if you wanted to make them stronger, you just moved them closer to you. And if you wanted to make them less bright, you moved them away. That was very high tech, but at that price, it doesn't matter. If you've got low cost lighting, but it gives you the light levels you need for everything, then you've achieved it. I have a lot of money spent on the big light in front of me, but once I get the level right by dialing the dial up forward and backwards, I probably don't need to touch that dial ever again until I do another scene or another layout. So I totally agree with you. We like spending money. We like technical stuff. We like all these toys, but they're not always needed all the time. They're not needed all the time. Let's have a look at, I think I have one more. I have one more slide. What's your backup plan? When things go wrong, and they will go wrong. And if they don't, actually, you can get really disappointed if everything's perfect when you've done all your backups. But what is your backup plan? My backup plan for this meeting is I have a second computer that has joined us, and it's just sitting there in case anything goes wrong. And because I'm a little bit over technical, I think it's actually on a different broadband network, because I've got 2 broadband suppliers. And so it's a completely different network. So if it's a power cut, I'm stuck because I'm in the room here. But the backup plan could be as simple as I've got a page which says, it's broken, we'll be back in a minute. But you must have a backup plan. What's your backup plan, Mike, apart from laughing at me, of course, which is a pretty good backup plan?
Of course it is. It's always a good backup plan. Is that, oh, John broke something again. What's my backup plan? Yes, if I'm hosting an event, I will do this similar to what John does, is that it'll be an additional account that I will make a co-host. And so that worst comes to worst, I could just swap from my current location to that other location. Or in the regards of different situations that I've done, it might be that I've got again, I have the luxury of having multiple studios. So I will log into multiple studios, but there is the potential of me being able to physically go from studio A to studio B. So that in that regards, today I am not doing so, but I don't officially have a backup plan today, which is abnormal for me. But in that regards, yes, it's always good to have a backup plan. It's always good to make sure that you understand that things will happen, and you should never assume that things will not happen, because that would always be a bad assumption, because there will be times where you will run into problems, and it will be that one time that you decided not to have a backup plan is when you actually needed that backup plan, and how you're going to deal with that situation at that time.
That's great. Yeah, you need a backup plan. If you have an agenda, make sure that more than one person has the agenda. So if you drop off the meeting, somebody else can pick up the slack and carry on the meeting for you. And the presentation. Make sure that multiple people have copies of the presentation in case the presentation fails. With presenters who don't do presentations all the time, unfortunately, that's something that happens quite often. They will get confused, can't share the slides properly.
That's a very good one, John. Having a backup person that actually is might have a little more skills, especially the host, of the meeting to have them actually have all the slide decks. Should that person all of a sudden during the actual presentation, in this case, John could have actually given me a set of the slides as well, where I could have actually had them here, and then John could have actually been talking, and instead of seeing me, you would have went over to a slide instead of showing me my logo from our company. Again, that could have been a little bit of a different scenario of a layout as well, within even just the webinar situation, right? Where John could say, yep, next slide. And then all of a sudden it would be, oh, yep, here we go. We're going to the next slide.
Yeah.
And we're going back from the slide.
Exactly.
Right? So,
exactly. I could have even brought my backup person on, and I could have talked through my backup person, or the backup person could have shared the slides.
Right.
I'm trying to write a thing about slides at the moment. I've been looking into all the things you can do with slides, and Zoom's changed that a lot recently. So it would take an episode in itself. Maybe we'll do an episode on slides, or maybe I'll just do a video. But yes, what slides have done is got rather carried away now with all the options available. And that's just in Zoom before you start using production software to play around with things. Now, I asked the audience, because we always like to ask the audience, what production tools they like the most. And Ray Franklin came up with, he likes Game Show. So he likes to get very interactive.
Excellent.
There are a lot of things you can do with Zoom, and certainly you can create game shows type formats very easily, because you've got the chat, you've got your quizzes, so you could do some quizzes for your game show. I have a lot of meetings where they set a question and then throw everybody into breakout rooms. And so the cooperation and the networking and all that sort of thing can happen in the breakout rooms, getting to know them can happen in the breakout rooms, and they all then come back with each with an answer from each breakout room, and then you can judge which breakout room came up with the best idea. Or you can make them a team and get them to do the quiz, go away and come back and come back with the answers there. And that's before, of course, you add other things to the standard version of Zoom.
Yeah, and actually, I've got a good example for you, John, if you want to see it.
Yeah, please do.
All right, and I'm going to use our infamous Zoom share functionality, and I will just make sure that I've got everything properly done here. Okay. Yeah, just give me one more second, John. Continue on. I'll be with you momentarily.
One of the features about share, which people don't seem to know, so I'm going to mention now, although it steals the thunder of my my content I'm going to release later this week, is please take note, there is a pause button in share. You can start sharing, and then if you have to go away and find something or type in a password, you can use the pause button, and it will freeze your screen at the point where you paused, and then you can go on to find whatever you needed to find, and then you can click off the pause button and carry on sharing, which does make life a lot easier for everybody else, because they don't have to be embarrassedly looking away as you're typing your password.
I am ready, John.
Please share away, Mike.
So this is just a very simple, again, you could easily gamification using just plain old PowerPoint, right?
Yeah. Okay, so this is an interactive PowerPoint slides where you can click on things and it goes around different slides. Is that what it is?
Yep. So it's literally, yeah, this is actually, let me just go back here to start with the first slide. So you'll see here. Oh, you gotta love live television. All right. Is it switching, John, or is it staying
No, we're
still?
seeing the content view, the presenter's view, not the content view.
Okay. Yeah, 1 second.
And this is where the backup of somebody else running the PowerPoint slides is done. So Mike obviously
That's
showed that
right.
to us on purpose to show us that that's the problem that people often
And
have.
how to make a mistake. Absolutely. Yes. And yeah, continue on. I'll be back.
That's all right. Come on, audience, bail us out with some questions. That's what we always say, isn't it? Bail us out with some questions. Yes, my list of things that I like about Zoom is longer than the 5 things that I chose. And as you've asked, I will answer it. The other thing that I really like about Zoom is apps. Yes, you knew I was going to have to mention something to do with Zoom developers because that's where I get out of jail so often. There are some really neat apps in Zoom, and that means you can take Zoom to another level by having an app. And it was interesting that Ray mentioned competitions and Mike as trying to bring up a spreadsheet to show competitions because that's something I've been playing around with a lot. And also, I know I'm not the only one because of some of the questions we've had in the Zoom community. So for those that are inspired to either do something or to persuade other people to do things, it is possible to take this box I'm in, okay? And this is called the camera view. And it is possible to overlay content into this window in Zoom. And the content you overlay is effectively just HTML content. And when you put that content over you, it can be in front of you or it can't be behind you if you've got no transparent background, but it can be behind you if you've got a transparent background. And that content can then allow you to put in graphics like lower thirds and things like that. But I've noticed there's quite a lot of people now who are starting to build game show type interaction, and they've been asking to put things like the score that somebody has on the screen, or a red button if they got it wrong and a green button if they got it right, and overcoming the limitation of running another app, you know, and having to load a browser and load another program. They can just overlay it into the camera screen. And of course, when you are running an app, you tend to open a little window on the edge as well. And that window allows you to run another page of content, which could be HTML. And that's where another place where the apps can run. I'm just having a look at some of the contents, the comments coming through. But even when you're short of problems and you don't know what you're doing, you've always got the interactivity just to keep things. Oh, and I've got another hello to John, another John. Never go. You can never have enough Johns in a meeting. I've got John Littleson from Monterey. At least the weather might be more inclement over there, and I won't feel so guilty that John Littleson's with us. Don't forget the basics. If you are going to have a game show, is you've got the ability to raise your hand, and you've got all the other reactions, which you can use to get people to react to something you're doing. And of course, the neat thing about that is if you want to use a piece of software, you could actually count the number of times people did a thumbs up or raise their hand or the yes or the no. And if you're really tactical, you could work out when they answer those questions at those particular points, and you can get straw polls that way. I have used the yes and no's for voting because it's just easier to see across the screen, a gallery view of the votes, rather than getting people to put yes or no into the chat, which you then have to scroll up and down and see what everybody are. But if you've got a gallery view and you just get them all to vote in the gallery view, it's a much quicker way of finding the answer. Mike, you're nodding your heads. Does that mean we have something?
We do.
Whoa.
Here we go. So this actually is a template. So you'll see it here is, yes, they are
got the title.
They're pretending they are Jeopardy, but they're Jeopardy.
Jeopardy.
So again, they've done the layout as if you're looking at the, if you're familiar with the Jeopardy game, they've got the, you got in here, you can put your different categories, category number 1 for $200, Alex. I know, good Canadian guy, not with us anymore, unfortunately, but yes. $400, John, right here. So here you write the answer and contestants supply the question. There you go. So then you got your different categories, and this was just a template. But again, you can see how easily this, and again, we're not doing anything outrageous in the regards of this was just me sharing a PowerPoint that somebody could have easily prepared ahead of time, which I didn't, but that could have had magical questions, and you gather this up and all of a sudden you've got multiple people in there, and now you've got a very, very basic gamification in Zoom, in any Zoom, because we're in webinar and you see it. So again, this can be done in meetings, webinars, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Back to you, John.
Thank you. And of course, you could use one of the more advanced versions of screen share, where you could perhaps make a corner of the PowerPoint a blank, and then you could overlay yourself, and you could be with a transparent background standing in front of the slides and talking to the slides and showing them as well. But I like that. That's nice and simple. And that's just a simple interactive spreadsheet. PowerPoint slide or Keynote slide. Makes things very easy to use.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, of course, it could be a spreadsheet, but so you could actually have a pie, if you wanted to show your bar graphs or pie graphs, pie charts and such. Absolutely. But you're right, John. The share is should have its own dedicated show, because we could be showing all kinds of different things, and it would actually probably be pretty good too if you would. I believe you have a green screen, if I'm correct.
I do. So that actually have a green screen, and I have a blue screen as well if I really want to show off. So yes, I thought I would do a complete presentation on how to do how the different ways you can do presentations, because it has grown up very quickly. In fact, the only thing I've got to get working, which I haven't got live at the moment, is to show you how you do the lower thirds in a box, because you could even screen share by screen sharing into your video box, which is a more sophisticated way of what I'm doing here, which is making my slideshow take over from my camera. Very low tech, but after playing around with so much tech, trying to decide what I want to do, and then setting myself a rule that I couldn't use tech, so I just have a very simple. I'm switching camera. I have 2 camera feeds, one coming from my computer over there, which is running the slides on this remote, and all I'm doing is flipping between the 2 cameras, and that's how I'm getting the slides in a very low-tech way. But that was my personal challenge.
Right. And John, just that the reason I brought up the green screen is that, again, we're talking about framing yourself. And it is one of my pet peeves too, of how people will not inappropriately use it, but improperly, there's the word I wanted, improperly use their green screen, because again, green screen and cameras need a lot of lighting. And if you do not light up just the green screen itself by itself, you will end up in a situation like you see with John right now, where you can see around his head, you will see his hairs.
Yeah. And in my,
but yet,
my
if John was properly in front of his, yeah, and if you were properly in front of your green screen, where you had your big light on the green screen itself and also had a big light on yourself, then of course that would all disappear. And you would not have the problems like John's fingers, as you can see with the blur type effect that Zoom is adding, that it automatically starts doing all those funky things, and you can see the background is still poking through.
Exactly. I'm sorry to all of you that use these very, very simple backgrounds. I don't like it. I really don't like it. Can I say it again? I don't like it. If you are going to need to put a logo up of a business, then please just use a video filter. They're very easy. There are some standard video filters built in. So I've chosen the most inappropriate one I could think of from the list there. And these work fine, but you can upload your own video filters, and you can upload quite a few now. Used to be you can only upload 3. I don't know what the limit is. I have about 9 or 10 on my account at the moment. The only limitation I have with video filters is they're a global video filter. So you can't make some of these overlays just for yourself. You have to make them for your organization. But as a lot of my target market here is going to be organizations who want to put a logo up, well, that's going to be global for everybody. Yeah, well, there's a logo I prepared earlier from the screenshots. And if you are a smaller organization, you want to build some basic lower thirds, you can do that. And I think I actually have a video on my YouTube channel already about this particular method of adding content to your page. I'm pretty sure it's on the Lord Zoom YouTube channel already. So add your own video filters if you want. And I have noticed that people have started using the Studio Effects to make sure that their beard looks as dark as possible. So just look at the money it could save me. Zoom is just an amazing product. I don't have to buy lots of darkening because I can use the Zoom features of the moustache and beard to do it for me and darken my beard without even trying. Not that I recommend that in corporate meetings, but it is quite surprising what you can get out of Zoom nowadays. Oh, Ray is not a very keen person in losing the presenters into little boxes when you share slides. Ray, we totally agree with you, and that's exactly why we did it, because it does look bad, and you have to see it to believe it. It does look bad. We will go up the next level next week and make screen shares more interesting. But yes, putting you in little boxes in the corner is not good, especially as the presenters then tend to just forget they're on camera and they'll start presenting, doing their slides because they don't think anyone's even watching them anymore. And then it looks even more disjointed. As they look around the room and check their next post before they hit their slide button. So that is a very good point. Anything else from the guys? I don't think there is. So I would like to, as there is no more comments, I would like to just add something now. And at that point, somebody put something in the chat. You've ever noticed that? You always get something in the chat as soon as you say, I'm going to go on to the next thing. So the next and last thing I'd like to talk about in Zoom meetings, because that, although we're in Zoom webinar here, Zoom meetings is what we're talking about, is the content delivery during the meeting through through captions and transcripts. And I think that these are very useful and probably not used as much as people think they should. So when I run a meeting, even if it's not my meeting, I will always ask for the transcript and try and get the person who's running the meeting to turn on the transcript. The reason for this is really very simple. During most meetings, at some point, somebody's going to have to say something clever or interesting or useful or whatever. Or maybe they're going to just do something off the cuff and you're going to think, wow, I've never heard him say it that way before. It is so much easier if you can then refer to a live transcript to cut and paste that bit of content than it is to wait until the recording's finished and then try and find it, or ask AI Companion to go and hunt down the thing they said, and AI Companion decides something else is more important, comes back with a different answer. And of course, AI Companion can't work as well if the transcript's not running. You can't query the transcript easily if there's no transcript running. So for those 3 reasons, and I always like 3, always make sure that you encourage the owner, the host, the runner of the meeting to turn on the transcripts. And then you also, if you can persuade them, get the right to save the transcript as well so that you have it for later. I have very often taken presentations, copied the transcript, and then put it into my AI of choice so that I can extract information about that, get a summary of it, because I can't always get the automatic summary that the host may have from the meeting. But if they give me access to the transcript, at least I can create my own summary of the meeting. And that leaves me with one spooky thing, which I know Mike's experienced as well. And that is, I must make sure that I remember that Mike needs to add something to the to-do list. Because there are those amazing AI running in the background will add things to your Zoom. Mike, you had this happen to you recently by the look of it?
I did. It was actually a meeting that you and I had a few weeks ago, as a matter of fact, that magically during the meeting, all of a sudden, as I departed the meeting, in my tasks tab in the workplace app, I now have suggestions from Zoom AI Companion, the one and only, telling me that, Mike, don't forget that you and John talked about this item. And you're going to follow up and say this. I had about 2 or 3 of those from that meeting. And again, they were 90-ish% correct on what Zoom AI Companion actually thought was good ideas to be sending to me as tasks. And I let John know. And of course, with tasks being fairly new, and again, depending on if you had it enabled or not, I did for the meeting that John and I had. And of course, magic of television, I went back and all of a sudden in the tasks tab at the top, all of a sudden it said I had new tasks. So I clicked on it, and sure enough, and he was very specific to the meeting. He said, yes, in this meeting, you promised John this and you promised John that, and John promised you this and this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So all the different little tasks. And that's just because in conjunction with AI summary and transcription, magic of television, all of a sudden now Zoom was sending tasks based on that meeting because it is listening. As AI Companion is listening, as long as you have it enabled, it will send those tasks to you.
I think it's amazing. I I'm now beavering away, trying to work out what I need to say and how I need to say it so that I can get things to appear in tasks. And I'm now looking at workflows and thinking, oh gosh, what's going to happen next? Is AI Companion going to be able to build me workflows from the summary of what I said? This is getting, I hate to say it because I have a little bit of a thing against AI, but this is getting useful. I mean, this is really getting useful to build your to-do list and your workflows while you're in the meeting. I know that I shouldn't really say this, should I? I understand that there may be some Toastmaster groups who don't always have a secretary on the ball. I think that's the polite way of saying it. And they have used AI Companion to get a summary of the meeting and just submitted that as a summary of the meeting, which is a little bit naughty, but also I've been in groups where the secretary takes over the world by writing the minutes to suit what their agenda was and forgetting the things that they didn't want done and adding in the things they did. So maybe a unbiased AI Companion doing a summary of the meeting could be a good thing.
At least a good way to compare notes, John.
Indeed. The only complaint I have about AI Companion is there doesn't seem to be any way for me to give it an overview of what type of meeting it is so that it looks for what I want it to look for. I would like that control, Zoom, I really would, because it would allow me to set the context for AI Companion to work rather than poor AI Companion trying to make sense of what type of meeting it is. And if it's one of those disorganized meetings that goes off the rails, then AI Companion has as much chance of remembering what we were trying to do as the rest of us. So it would be nice to give it a context of what's going on so that it then follows that. But I do love the fact that I can ask AI Companion, what did I promise to do at the end of this meeting? And it will give me a summary, and then I can have my tasks set up for me. And I'm guessing that we'll have workflows in the future. Workflows have only just started and there's not much in them yet, but I can see workflows being a great way to connect all the bits of Zoom together. So I'm really excited.
And what about Zoom Docs, John?
Well, yes, you can. You can start Zoom Docs and you can share docs, or you can use Docs to present. And yes, you can do your Zoom Docs, take your overview or your questions from AI Companion and paste them into Zoom Docs. I love Zoom Docs. I love Zoom Docs. And now we could be talking about
what about that workflow that you're talking about to actually be made into a Zoom doc?
Well, tasks, workflows, and Zoom Docs could work together. I'm watching on the API side because, okay, I'm going to have to mention another company. So workflows is like the Zapier, is like the built-in Zapier functions of Zoom. That's how I feel it is. It allows you to set tasks that kick off other tasks. So of course, I'm now looking at all these developers and myself who are integrating with all the other apps, and I'm now thinking, okay, so I want to be able to say something, and then workflows can then make it happen somewhere else. So I might make a note to add to a contact, but rather than having to hard code everything, I want to just set a task to do that, and then workflows process it for me. Yep, I'm 2 years ahead of what Zoom are probably trying to do, but that's where I think it will go, and I hope it will go, because I just like the idea of Zoom Workplace being this automated agent to go and do things for me without me having to go and get another third-party app. It'd be lovely if this all ends up in Zoom. You have meetings then that work, don't you? You have a meeting in the old way. We would sit around a desk and somebody would get a pencil and paper and write down what was happening. But now if we have a Zoom meeting, we all have a transcript of what everybody said. We all have a summary from AI Companion of what was agreed. As you say, you can put that into a Zoom doc, and then people can edit or sign off when they've done the various tasks. This is a much more integrated, a much more organized world. And even when I'm doing stuff on my own, I do create a heck of a lot of Zoom docs nowadays for myself and group them up and work on them and process them. So you don't have to have a big organization to make use of these tools. Any more final comments in the chat? I don't think there are. They are like us, finding their way in the first episode of this meeting. And I really should ask Mike to do the summary because he's very good at doing that. We'll be back next week. But we'll be back next week. We will be back every week for this hour in your respective time zone, which for me is currently 7 till 8 at GMT +1 in London. Mike, it's time for you is?
Yeah, so 2 p.m. Eastern, and let me do this properly, 11 a.m. Pacific in the US or Canada.
So it only remains for me to say thank you very much, Mike, for joining me on this enterprise. Thank you to our guests, who are few but fondly appreciated, for coming to this first meeting. And thank you for all of you that are going to be watching the recording of this presentation. Carry on Zooming, and we'll see you in a week's time.
We open wide the virtual stage where ideas spark and wisdom fills the page. From the UK to the land of maple trees, John and Mike bring clarity with ease. We're building meetings, webinars with might, helping you shine your message, taking flight. Whether you're new or you've done this before, Lord Zoom Live will help you do much more. We're building meetings, webinars with might, helping you shine your message, taking flight. Whether you're new or you've done this before, Lord Zoom Live will help you do much more. Thank you for joining us, we're glad you're here. Together we grow, it's loud and clear. On Zoom we connect, we learn, we grow. Welcome my friend, enjoy the show. To breakout rooms with flair, we've got the tools and we're ready to share. Guest experts drop in, bringing gold each time, with insights and tricks to help you climb. Can't make it live? We've got you still on YouTube and LinkedIn. We're giving that thrill, so tune in later or catch us next round. Either way, your success is where we're bound. Thank you for joining us, we're glad you're here. Together we grow, it's loud and clear. On Zoom we connect, we learn, we glow. Welcome my friend, enjoy the show. And make it live, we've got you still. On YouTube and LinkedIn, we're giving that thrill. So tune in later or catch us next round. Either way, your success is where we're bound. Take the spotlight, the stage is yours. Bring your message through virtual doors. Each week we gather, and now you know you're not alone, so let it flow. Thank you for joining us, now go and shine. Share what you've learned, your voice, your time. With Lord Zoom Live, your power will grow. It's time to build your